So I think that none of you need this explanation, but just in case you joined the MCP webinar hoping that this is something about um, not AI and not Model Context Protocol, in case you completely randomly ended up here, I will explain. So MCP is a protocol that helps you plug your tools into your AI stack, into your AI agent. In this case, we're talking about the Miro MCP, which allows you to use your AI agent, whatever it is, whether you're using Claude, whether you're using ChatGPT, Codex, whatever else, into Miro to both read and write data. Read data from Miro and write data back into Miro. Our MCP server has been on purpose kept very small with limited set of tools because we wanted to focus on the use cases that we believe are valuable. We are expanding the set of tools available in our MCP server, and you're actively seeing how we're releasing new things. But this is specifically about functionality that's not available anywhere else. It's not available in our public APIs. So it's a very specific set of tools that we believe serve very specific use cases that you'll soon see from our teams. We are not only investing in new tools in MCP, we're also investing in skills and plugins. And at the end of the webinar, you'll see a link to where all of our skills and plugins are stored, so you can easily install them into your AI tool of choice. Now, the key functionality that we started with is creating and updating our most used formats. That's docs, tables, and diagrams. We believe that these create a set of functionality that allows engineers, engineering teams, engineering leaders build whatever is needed to build more informed products, but also to create documentation out of the products that have already been built. Now, we also allow to read and summarize whole boards. This is very useful when your team is already on Miro, or whether you decided to use Miro as your a place for generating a specification. And thanks to that, you can very easily understand exactly what's happening on the Miro board and put it into your AI agent. So it not only sees what are the elements on the board, but it also understands the relationship between them, the visual representation of where they're positioned, and things that allow it to very easily convert that knowledge into, for example, code if you're using a coding agent. Now, our two primary use cases that we released MCP Server with are connected to engineering, are connected to coding. I hope that most of you here are interested in this. The first use case is about converting code into context that can be used with you, your team, for any planning that you're doing. So imagine a situation where you have to start working on a completely new code base that someone else built, or start working on a module that you have never worked on before. This use case allows you to easily explain what is already happening in code to give you a kickstart when you're working on an iteration or new functionality that you're trying to add to that module. Now, that leads to, let's say, some collaboration session with your team, a technical design, maybe an architecture that you want to redo. And that set of knowledge that you just generate on Miro can then easily be converted back into your AI coding tool. And that's what we explain as context to code. You have your decisions codified in Miro. You can very easily use them in your coding tool of choice to generate code. Now, I know that these are fairly high level. If you have any questions, the Q&A feature in Zoom should be open and ready for you to ask any of them. And yes, the recording will be available for future use. But as I said, these are very high level. What I think is going to help you understand it much better of what Miro as a platform, thanks to MCP, enables for you to do and to deliver better products, work faster, or feel more comfortable with using AI. I would like to bring the members of my team to show you some demos of what have we internally been doing and have we been working and using this MCP to help us work better. And we're going to start with Horia, who will, I'll stop sharing my screen right now. We'll start with Horia, who will show a little demo of one of the use cases that I just showed you. Hi, Horia.
Awesome. Thank you, Lukash. Thanks for setting a nice, yeah, just a great intro for everyone here. Let me share my screen and show you what we've been up to. So just want to make sure you can all see my Miro board and my terminal. Think that's a yes. Awesome. So first of all, I'm going to just start with a nice little story, and I just want to paint the picture of how we've been using Miro's MCP server internally to speed up some of the security review processes to let us spend time on the most critical projects. So of course, security reviews are very critical, but we're able to speed up some of the more manual parts of that process. So what you can see on this Miro board is some of my MCP generated artifacts, and I'll prove that to you in just a few minutes. You can see my Claude Code session is right here. And basically you can see I've already started prompting here, and I'll do that live demo in just a few minutes. But what I want to show you is actually how Miro used its own MCP server for internal security reviews. And the main steps is actually Eugene, who's actually on the call, is the one that actually kind of like used all of these to help speed up the reviews. And what we did is we used Claude Code and connected it to our MCP server, had the agent read the MCP server code base, and then auto-generate those diagrams from the real code and ship that within 10 minutes. So as we talked about before, our MCP server can generate documents like the one you're seeing here. It can also generate some nice diagrams, for example, like the one you see here. This is just something I just quickly drew over to kind of emphasize. But basically, before we had a very manual process where the security review is requested. And of course, the engineer reads the full code base manually, has to understand it and needs to identify all the components, manually draw the architecture diagrams, review and iterate. And now, instead of taking days, we can really move to something that takes only a few minutes, and you'll see that in just a couple minutes here. But basically, the main difference is, of course, the AI agent can read the code base very quickly, auto-generate the diagram. Of course, we still need the human in the loop to actually review and iterate on the diagram accuracy, but at least that first draft is generated very quickly. And as you can see, or you will see in just a couple minutes, the diagrams are pretty accurate. And of course, we can also generate tables like the one here, just kind of outlining the different aspects of the before and after. So the time to completion, who does the work, the accuracy, the steps required, etc. Cool. So now you're probably wondering, well, when do I actually get to see it in action? So here we go. Here is our sample prompt. Do not worry about reading that right now because I'll review it as the agent is working. So let me copy that in. You can see I'm already logged in and authenticated and connected to Miro, and I've already prompted a little bit in the past. So now I'm just going to paste in this prompt, and we'll, as it's working, we'll start to just review the prompt so you can understand exactly what the agent is doing. So let me show you that now. So as you can see, basically we gave it the repo to analyze, which is our open source repo, Miro AI, and we want to add the results on this Miro board, which is ending in EZ04. Okay, I think I accidentally cut off a little bit of that URL, but you should see that the results pop up on this board. And we need to do a security audit for the Miro AI repo. Please help me understand the different parts and pieces of the repo and how would I best explain it to leadership. Create both diagrams, docs, and table. Make sure to only create 3 diagrams, 1 sequence, and 2 architecture diagrams. One should be very simple. The other can be more complex. It needs to be very quick. We are on a live webinar and people are watching. Create me a nice summary document. So as you can see, it's working right now, and we should see those being created in just a second. So as you can see, it's placed these a bit further, and it's because I've already auto-generated a bunch as I was prepping for this. So I've already generated a lot of these documents in the past, so it's kind of adding them a little bit further on the Miro board, but we are working on this layout and positioning to make it a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier to just manage all of these diagrams. So in just a couple seconds, I'm going to move these here and see where it's at. So it's still creating the document. Okay, we got everything. So let me quickly zoom in so we can see all the artifacts. So basically, this is kind of the Miro AI repo, which is here. And we've had it basically just go in and analyze, we have different plugins, we have different workflows, we have different extensions here. And we want to analyze this repo and explain to leadership what's exactly in this repo. So we have a very simple leadership view, which is our AI coding assistant is connecting via HTTPS to our MCP server, which uses OAuth 2.1, reads and writes to the Miro board. And of course, we got to have our audit logs for enterprise compliance. Now we have a little bit more of a complicated view. So we just have a little bit more of the full components here. We have AI clients like Claude Code, Gemini CLI, Cursor. We have different plugin and extensions like the Miro Research, which checks if the user has a Glean tool or MCP server set up, then it will use that tool to actually bring in enterprise knowledge from the company base or for the company knowledge base. Here we can see that we're also using OAuth 2.1 where we authenticate with that and we issue that token. And it also calls a REST API to actually read and write Miro board data. And of course, we have our audit log trail. And we have a nice little one pager for leadership. So, what is the repo? It's an open source MIT repo. We have a one-line pitch for leadership, and we have a how it works and what lives in the repo. So we have our cloud plugins. We have our powers for Kiro. We have skills for things that we want to or that we want to do multiple times with our agent, so we don't have to prompt the same thing over and over again. We have our securities, green lights, so strong security, and maybe some watch lists or something that might have more security risks, and that's just something we need to watch. And lastly, let's check out the table too. So we can see kind of the authentication. We have the MCP server. We have the categories of the risk of the security audit. And we can go down to maybe some of the higher risk like prompt injection, data exfiltration, secret leakage, stuff like that. So as you can see, it only took, just a few minutes. You can see it took 3 minutes and 13 seconds. We added all this amazing, oh wait, we also didn't show the data flow. So we also have the data flow document of exactly how a user communicates with the agent, how the agent communicates with our server. Ultimately, it executes an API request, and then the API response gets returned to MCP, which then, of course, delivers it to the AI client. AI client delivers that to the developer. So that's the last little diagram I wanted to show you. And yeah, that's a nice little way. As you can see, I already have an archive here of the different diagrams I've generated. But as you can see, within just a couple minutes, you should be able to explain something to leadership that maybe would have taken you hours or days. You can explain it in 3 minutes and 13 seconds. So I hope you can see the awesome powers of our code visualization. It's really helped a lot for our internal security reviews. And I'll now pass it over to Eugene, who can dive a little bit deeper into his AI workflows for PR reviews and things that he uses daily to actually improve his day-to-day coding. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, you'll see this very soon on our YouTube channel. And I'll pass it to Eugene. Thank you.
Thank you, Horia. Hello, everybody. So I will talk a little bit more in depth about the plugins. Let me share my screen and walk you through this. I will start with this repository, which is Miro AI repository, is the one where we store all the plugin configuration. And as you learned from what Łukasz said, the MCP is pretty much the core of the interaction between the agents and the third-party tools. But there are some rules that need to be defined to enable these interactions in an efficient way. And those rules are pretty much defined by the plugins. Here we have the plugins configured for Cloud Code, for Cursor, for Gemini CLI, and it's pretty interesting repository from the perspective of automation because all of those plugins are generated automatically from the Cloud Code plugins because Cloud was the first one that introduced this feature in their coding agent. We have the number of them, and I will talk a little bit about two different plugins that I use pretty much daily. And the first one is the experimental one. All of them are located here in the Cloud plugins directory, so you can go and check them out. So it's open source, so you can check the automation and plugin configuration as well. The first one is the Miro tasks plugin. As you might know, a couple of months ago, there was a Ralph loop introduced to the agentic world, which basically does the pretty straightforward thing. It loops the cloud code and ensures that what you ask it to do is actually being done. So we started thinking about how it can be applied inside of the Miro. How do I actually break down the work that I do in the coding session into the tasks, and how I actually ensure that Cloud Code does those tasks and complete each and every one of those. So that's how this plugin was introduced. Right now, the models obviously have already advanced. It's been 2 months, so it already feels like 2 years. And they are better following the plans, but still we need some sort of kind of like visual proof that the units of work were accomplished. What I did here, I started with the pretty simple prompt. There was recently a blog published from OpenAI regarding the evaluation of the skills. And skills, in comparison to plugins, it definitely a part of the plugins, but this is the knowledge source for the agentic systems of how to use plugin and what to do inside of it. And obviously, as any AI feature, it should be evaluated. So we need to ensure the quality of the instructions. So OpenAI published this great blog post, skill evaluations, and I just had an idea that we need to try to evaluate the skills that we create inside of this Miro AI repository and understand how well agents follow the instructions. So I just asked Cloud Code to create the plan for it. So I switched to the planning mode and it created the plan. And then instead of starting executing the plan straight away, I asked Cloud to put this plan on the Miro board inside of the table. So as you can see here, it created the table and I quickly will switch to the table right there. So this is exactly what Cloud Code was planning to do in order to implement the evaluations for the Miro skills. So first thing, it was trying to understand the scaffolding and create some scripts, then mock the MCP server, then create some fixtures. I believe it will at some point come up with the rubrics and graders. And yeah, well, it was pretty much ambitious, so it straight away decided to put it in the CI flow, which is pretty good. It also prioritized the tasks and started the implementation. So how I started the implementation in this case is very much straightforward with the Miro Tasks plugin. After you install the plugin, you will have the number of comments available for you. And one of those is Miro Tasks Enable. So Miro Tasks Enable is exactly starting this Ralph loop and ensures that agent will not stop until it knocks out each and every task from that table. So this is exactly the work that is going on right now. So I will just allow all edits during the session, and we'll see how Cloud will execute on those items from the table. But as you can see, one task is already in progress. So I will let Cloud Code do its thing, and I will switch to another thing that I use pretty much daily. And this is the PR review flow. Right now, obviously, it's not a surprise for you that number of code that we ship daily has increased. And it's really hard to catch up and stay up to date with all the changes. Sometimes you can easily get I don't know, like 10 PRs for review with the total amount of code, I mean, measured in thousands of lines. So I'm pretty sure that every engineer right now is facing with this problem. And yeah, so uh, there is no bulletproof solution for that, but I definitely know how to simplify my own life and life of my colleagues. So, and yeah, I consider it right now as just a pure politeness. So whenever I create a PR, I usually do it with the Miro review plugin. So Miro review plugin is basically the one that goes through the whole PR, like just a simple review plugin from the cloud code, analyze it, but all the artifacts that it creates from that analysis, it puts back on the board. So instead of well, not instead of, but together with this thousand lines of code, you will get also extra, let's say like 500 lines of text or diagrams or tables that you will need to review. But it makes your work way easier because it's visual. It's way easier to understand what happened inside of this pull request. Here I demonstrate it on one of the PRs that was already merged in this Miro AI repository, and it was related to adding cursor plugins. Let me switch to what I got in the results. So as you can see here, the plugin itself, and again, it's just a set of instructions on what Cloud needs to pay attention to and what artifacts to create. It created a pretty clear table with all the files that were modified, explaining the changes in each and every file. So instead of like trying to understand the whole logic that is being displayed in diff, you have the human readable sentence of what actually was changed. And the nice thing that you have is obviously it's opinionated, but still you have some sort of visual representation of how important this change is. Second thing you have here is the code review, just to code review like results from general perspective, like what was changed in this PR, how it matches the PR description, and so on. Architecture analysis, security analysis, those are very important parts because it gives you the structural way of comprehending, of understanding what is inside of those code changes. And what happened here was that we added the cursor plugins. So definitely there are like very low security risks and maybe not so many things to learn from the architecture analysis. But another thing that Claude created, because it was specifically clarified in the instructions, is the diagrams of what exactly these changes mean in the whole architecture. And as you can see here, so it demonstrates the whole flow of what the plugin generation process looks like. So how we get from the cloud plugins to the Gemini plugins to the Cursor plugins to the uh, skills. Skills are also generated from the cloud code plugins. And this is the distribution diagram of how and in which folders you get it all. And here's just the flow of which transformations are being applied to each and every file inside of the plugins folder to get the results done. So as you can see right now, instead of reviewing this stuff like 68 files, it's really crazy for the reviewer to understand it all. You have these preparation done up front, which brings you some level of confidence in what you need to review in the first place. So this is the second plugin that I use pretty much daily, and I strongly encourage you to, if not using Miro Review plugin, at least use some sort of visualization to simplify the work of your colleagues when you send another 100 lines of 1,000 lines of code to for the review. Let's see what is happening here. So it feels like the code is stuck for some reason. And yes, obviously it's stuck on the permissions. So I prefer to launch my code in the sandbox. And that's why it's asking me for some permissions. But I will let Cloud do its magic, and if we'll come up with something meaningful, I will definitely create a PR. And because the repository is public, you will be able to see what is happening. For this board, I will add it to the PR descriptions, and yeah, repository is public, board is also public right now, so you will be able to see uh, what I was referring to during this short talk. I hope it was interesting, and with this, I will hand it over to Andy, who will tell you a little bit more about how he uses the AI and the management processes.
Thanks, Eugene. It's great to see that. I have the great pleasure today of showing everybody a little bit more of an interesting side of take of Miro MCP. So hi, I'm Andy. I'm an engineering manager at Miro. However, that's a pretty broad term. So consider me 30% manager, 70% engineer. That's what I hope. And most of the time I work closely on technical architecture and lead high-level discussions around the technical side of our code base and systems. My role is dynamic, and that means I need to solve problems in my day-to-day work that not everybody can see. So today I'm going to take you over a couple of things of how I work personally. I want to just make a note that I've gotten to this way of working through my personal usage of Miro MCP. Everybody's going to go on their own journey, and I really recommend you experiment with it and have a look at how it can help you. So for my day-to-day, I need to be able to surface issues within the running systems for my team and the code base that we own. I need to be able to describe to other teams and other bits of the organization how our systems work. And I need to be able to communicate upwards what's going on with the work that we've done and the work where we're going with that. And these are really powerful things that Miro MCP enables for me. So we have a lot of tools inside of Miro. I'm showing you a couple of them. These are the tools that I'll be using through the presentation. You can see a couple of internal ones. Well, most importantly, at the bottom right, something called Miro Digital Twin. This is something that's internal. The rest are pretty much available on the internet. Glean is one which I don't think everybody will know. It's a knowledge management system that we use with MCP. CoreLogix is an observability platform. And Victoria Metrics is basically an interchangeable system with Prometheus. So when I go through all the examples here, you kind of know what each one's doing. So how do I surface issues within our running system? Well, first off, I have made my own skill that utilizes all the platforms which I showed you earlier. That skill goes through our logs, through CoreLogix, through Prometheus, and has a look at what's going on and gives me an idea of where the system's at and where there could be potentially any problems in the system. It also then backward propagates and uses our internal digital twin to work out who's made changes to that bit of the system and why that was made. Helps me to track down who to speak to and to see where the problems are finally coming up. From there, it generates a board for me with the problems from left to right, the information that I need to have the discussions with the certain groups, my teams or other teams. It also gives me a bunch of diagrams just to illustrate where it's happening for the user. And I can go deeper if I would like, but in this case, I've kept a pretty high level just to give an example. In addition to that, there is a summary of the issues, kind of given with a severity bunch of information that's around that. And this helps me to know what's going on for each code base or for each service that's running quite easily and to see if this list is growing or shrinking. Some other bits and pieces which I've added to this skill for myself is to understand where we're missing metrics, where we're missing observability, how on the left-hand side here in this diagram, it's basically how the user is affected at each point in time during the kind of potential errors. And it shows a flow diagram of how the user steps through that. Then we get to kind of like understanding the problem and visualizing it. I've been playing a lot with how to best do this, and I encourage everybody to do something similar. Right now, it's a very short document with a very easy to read step through of the workflow. And when I need to expand on it, I can talk to Claude and say, for issue 1, please give me a better diagram and give a better description. And I can even do that in the call with the other team. It will draw it live and onto the board. Now, this visualization helps me as a manager to kind of do background work and to keep the systems in an operational state without having to pester engineers or follow up on other problems, and just keeps me in touch with the code bases and the systems that are running. On to my next part, and that is working with other teams and kind of the high level part of the organization, trying to describe my services, my team services, and the way they interact with each other through the company. Now, we all know about observability. It's great, but sometimes it causes certain problems with tracing, where for the same service, you can get multiple different traces. You don't have a kind of a solid view of what's going on. And in the middle of an incident or any type of problem, you might not necessarily be able to get a full picture. This creates a bit of frustration because certain people have a better understanding of the system than others, and so you need to pull them in order to get a good idea. However, if you have an observability platform with an MCP server, you can essentially let Claude Code, for example, go through that, through your traces and build up a nice diagram and put it on Miro, such as this one. This will then give you a good idea of all of the states or all of the downstream services in one dependency graph with just your system in an easy to read way that you can collaborate and move around just to understand what's going on. So you can have those high level discussions. An easy example of where we use this, once going back to what Jorge discussed around security, is for our security review in order to be able to explain to kind of the compliance organization which downstream services we use. This would be an easy way of doing that and then showing as well that this information is collected at the right level. That's through our tracing. It also shows that you can take products like our Miro code to board and then supplement it with your additional information, like your observability platform, maybe additional documentation, and really build up a better holistic picture of your entire system. Then finally, it is really difficult to communicate upwards inside of organizations at times. This is one of the most important things for managers to be good at doing, but it's one of the things we struggle with the most. Inside of Miro, we have a lot of tools that help us to kind of keep our knowledge and to store it and put it in the right place. But sometimes it's difficult to collect all of that, and it's difficult to present, even more difficult to present it. So we have a way of being able to get all that information onto a board, and then through using Miro AI, translate it into slide decks and be able to present it effectively to the rest of the business. So in this example, I used Claude, our internal data lake, which is inside of Snowflake, Glean, and Slack, to essentially grab information about a project and put it onto a Miro board in a way that would be usable by Miro AI to generate a slide deck so we could present it and share it out to the rest of the organization. I gave it this small prompt, and you would need to kind of change it. I'm just giving an example here for the prompt. You would need to alter your prompt to what would suit your business, but this will then generate these documents. On the left side, you can see kind of the research. I've deliberately removed any kind of inside information, but you can get an idea of the research which is done, and then a set of basically prompts for Miro AI to generate the slide deck for you. This is extremely powerful for a large number of reasons. Just the simplicity of being able to do the research, collect the context, put it all in one place is amazing. But then putting it into a slide deck and allowing everybody to collaborate and to alter the slide deck is really helpful with helping engineers to understand how they can effectively communicate upwards. And then also getting that feedback loop through comments and everything else on the board is very useful. Here's an example of the slide deck that was generated. Obviously, it's going to have the values in it the way it was done, but you can get an idea of what you can get from going from 0. 5 minutes later, you can have a slide deck, 5 to 10 minutes later, with information directly from your data lake pushed straight into Miro. Okay. So the Miro Slides team is actively working on slides. So if you do use it, consider giving us feedback on it. But this is just a small taste of what's possible for managers working inside of the engineering realm to have. And just a quick summary of what we've seen today from me. Teams are able to enhance their workflows by getting the technical information in and collaborating with others. Engineers are able to kind of code to board and then go deeper and add more context from their own observability stacks. And then finally, for a team to be able to present all of their ideas and initiatives across the board to the organization effectively with all the context in one place. This is what Miro MCP gives you. Thanks, everybody. Over to you, Łukasz.
Amazing. And we're back. How did it feel? What do you think of the demos? Any first reactions? I know this feels very one way. Oh, there's a heart emoji. Great. That gives me some. That means that at least I know you listened. Okay. Right. So should we go back to see what we have left in our lovely plan for the webinar? Let me share back my screen. Okay, so demo's done. Now, hopefully you got very excited about what you can do, and you, as Andy said, you're just gonna feel comfortable with experimenting. It's not about using the tools in exactly the same ways as we do. It's about trying and figuring it out, and AI is here to help you. But in case you want to start right now, there is a list of resources that hopefully is landing in the chat right now. There it is. And obviously we're going to share the board with you as well, so you're going to have access to all of those. There is the documentation for how to get started. There's the open source repo with all of the skills and plugins that you've seen today, or most of them at least. Maybe some of them are secret. There is instructions on how you can connect Miro MCP to your tool of choice. And if there's any missing, you can always reach out to our team. And there's a YouTube playlist of many more demos than just the few that you saw today. Some of them are a little bit more, let's imagine how the world would look like if we used AI for everything. These ones were very grounded in what we do internally at Miro, because that's what you usually want to know.